Good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you're watching this from, and welcome to today's session of Emergence Global. I'm Hugo Dupont, and I'll be your host for today's session. For today, I'm very excited to welcome Clem, Richard, and Tom from Loop. Before we begin, I just want to give a bit of background on Loop. Loop is a global platform for reuse that enables consumers to acquire their favorite branded products through retailers in reusable packaging, which they return for a return of their deposit. Loop was established in 2019 by TerraCycle, a world leader in recycling hundreds of waste streams that otherwise would not be recycled. For 20 years, TerraCycle has worked with consumers, brands, and retailers, building private options for recycling packaging in 21 countries. Just to name a few of their fantastic investment highlights, Loop has featured in over 13,500 unique articles worldwide and has world-class consumer packaged goods partners, including Coca-Cola, Nestle, P&G, and Unilever. I'd like to first invite Richard Pearl, Chief Administrative Officer at Loop, to present the company.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So Richard Pearl, Chief Administrative Officer of TerraCycle and Loop. I'm going to, before I show you a presentation on Loop, say a few things about myself, in particular Loop and how it fits in sort of to the global ecosystem of getting the world on a sustainable footing. Then we'll get into a presentation on TerraCycle and Loop, followed by an interview I did the other day with our CEO and founder, Tom Zaki, and then followed by a fireside chat live with Clem Schmid, who you saw online a moment ago, and she's the general manager of Loop, living in Geneva. Okay, so first, I'm Richard Pearl. I have been with TerraCycle for 15 years, but I have almost 40 years of experience in impact. I finished law school and business school and realized that I wanted my life to be about how do you make the world a better place, but I wanted to do it through business. I had had some time after college in the not-for-profit world, realized my life was in mission, but I felt that business needed to be the vehicle that changed the world. I entered that concept in my mind when others, Ben & Jerry of Ben & Jerry's, Patagonia, Esprit, Body Shop, and many other companies were forming that were the basis for the impact movement. And I've been in that community for really 40 years. I was delighted in 2007, 2008 to meet Tom Zaki, CEO, and joined TerraCycle at that time. So TerraCycle is really important here because it profitably recycles hundreds of waste streams that no other company recycles, basically because, as I'll show you in a few minutes, we have addressed the economics that make single use the dominant platform, but a dangerous one for the environment. And we found a way to involve brands and retailers and consumers in the process to get things that would otherwise end up in landfills or in incineration into recycling. But recycling is a transition strategy. We shouldn't be making single use to begin with. And so around 2017, our company committed in conjunction with major brands and retailers, and this was in conjunction with meetings at the World Economic Forum, to take on how do you make it so that every package has multiple lives up to 100, and at the end of the useful life, be 100% recyclable, zero waste access to products and packaging involving consumers, retailers, and of course, brands worldwide. That's Loop. To understand how we got to Loop and our ability to work with brands and retailers, it helps to understand TerraCycle. So I am really pleased to take you right now into TerraCycle and Loop and to let you understand that while a couple of years ago, we raised $25 million to do the Series A when Loop was an idea. It's now in hundreds of stores and moving toward thousands of stores. And that is what the Series B is about. So we are in the process of raising some capital for the Series B, and I'm really pleased now to introduce you to the company. So I'm going to put on my screen and show you a presentation on TerraCycle and Loop. Again. So first thing to say, again, is that Loop is a platform for allowing packages to not have a single life, but a multiple life, and subject to a deposit. You return the package dirty, empty, and it goes back into use again. The problem that both TerraCycle and Loop address is the linear economy. Take, make, waste model, sometimes called extract, manufacture, use once, discard, and repeat that process. Extract, manufacture, use once, and discard. And it's a sad process, but it's been convenient and accompanied what we called progress over time. It's now leading to great environmental challenges and not just the pollution, but also the amount of carbon that's extracted every day for a single use. It needs to stop. TerraCycle addresses this through two models. One is to recycle things that no one else recycles, and the other is Loop, which is a reuse platform that is younger, but established and growing and scaling. So it's important to understand the basics of recycling. Only 4 things are recyclable universally: glass, paper, certain plastics like water bottles, and certain metals like beer cans. And if you think of any waste stream and hypothetically say that the cost of collecting, sorting, and recycling is a 10, then only those 4 waste streams, glass, paper, water bottles, and beer cans, have a value after collection, sorting, and recycling of a 10, a 12, a 16. And that's why people can recycle them, because the costs are covered in the value of the material. But for everything else, pens, toothbrushes, candy wrappers, juice pouches, lipstick, coffee capsules, contact lenses, cigarette butts, you name it. If the cost of collecting, sorting, and recycling is a 10, the material value is only a 2, a 6, a 4. And so basically they get put in piles in the United States called landfills, and in many other parts of the world, they are burnt and incinerated, and sometimes you get some energy. But in both cases, it's this use once, discard, repeat, not real good for the environment, and incineration is not much better from a carbon and environmental perspective than landfill, unfortunately. How is it then that TerraCycle profitably collects, sorts, and recycles hundreds of waste streams that no one else recycles? Here's the answer. If the cost of collecting, sorting, and recycling a pen is a 10, but the value of the pen is only a 6, we charge the full 10 plus a profit margin to our clients. Yes, we introduce clients into the equation because otherwise we couldn't recycle them. We'd lose money too. Why do the clients pay us? Because they see a return on that investment with us in terms of their main interest, maintaining and growing sales and market share. They become seen as the ones who are bringing recycling to the category in which they're operating, in which they produce products, in which they produce packaging that has their name and their competitor's name on it. So who are these companies that pay us and work with us? This is a sampling, but it's major brands, multi-year companies, contracts, and many of them we say are over $1 billion. Some of them are closer to 100 billion: P&G, Nestle, Unilever, PepsiCo, Colgate, and on and on. And so these brands pay us to see return on investment. And by that, it really is looking at whether the brand can pay us, generally from a marketing spend, because sustainability departments don't have budgets of any matter. And we can deliver to them the kinds of market share maintenance and sales growth that they would see from their normal advertising. That way we can access the means to truly recycle. And so we do. And we provide good results and true recycling, and it gives us the money to build this business. The next thing to say is that we have over 100 million people globally participating in our company, our collections. We have really extraordinary R&D because most companies and waste management companies for sure don't really look at what the waste is made of, composed of. They either put it in a pile or burn it. And of course, we use third-party logistics. So for example, UPS in the US, Royal Mail in the UK, Sagawa in Japan, SF Express in China to collect, outsourcing these things. So we don't have our own trucks. And from a carbon perspective, these trucks are going to most buildings and offices every day anyway. And then, of course, we oversee the recycling and see that it gets to a manufacturer who can give it a second life. There are all kinds of ways that we work with different types of waste streams and different types of retailers or schools. We're in about, I think, over 60,000 schools globally. We work very closely with retailers around the world. Remember, the brands pay us. Who pays the brands? The retailers. If we can make the retailers happy in the name of the brand, they get more shelf space, and that allows them to recover the costs of true recycling. Sponsored waste is one of our 4 existing programs. That's the national programs that are paid for by brands, free to the public. But we also have solutions where the end user can pay us. We also do things with light bulbs and batteries, and we have material sales division. We have many new businesses that will help us expand how we can bring recycling to salons or to homes and other areas of improvement on impact. We are award-winning and well-known, and all the brands have studied us carefully before they put our name and logo on their package. Time Magazine in 2021 named TerraCycle one of the 100 most influential companies in the world, along with these large companies at the bottom. We're not that large. We should approach about $90 million US this year. But we do, however, work with so many of the large companies and help them move from the linear economy to the circular economy. And so this is all important background on TerraCycle. We're in the press last year, 62 articles a day, 365 days a year on average. The summary on TerraCycle before we move to Loop is simple. We're the world leader in recycling hundreds of waste streams that no other company can afford to recycle. I've explained to you that the cost of collecting, sorting, and recycling exceeds the value, but unlike other waste management companies, TerraCycle offers a full range of services that drive economic benefit to our clients that fund the recycling services. The stage there was made for the Tokyo Olympics from waste collected in Japan. Next, the Paris Olympics will be doing a stage from waste collected this year and next year in Paris. So TerraCycle's out there transforming the waste stream, working with brands, retailers, and consumers, which qualifies us uniquely to work with those same players to bring Loop into the world. So Loop is a global platform where any manufacturer, and as you can see, we work with many of them, can create reusable products and in reusable packaging, and any retailer can make them available. Our goal is to make it easy, so you could buy it at McDonald's and return it at Tesco or Sainsbury or Waitrose or Asda if you're in the UK. Buy it at any of those stores and return it to Tesco or any of those stores. The point is, buy anywhere, return anywhere. That's key to the Loop system of bringing the convenience, affordability, and simplicity to the system. We start with the milkman. What's really important is that years ago, things were made to last. If that milk bottle cost $10 and you got 10 uses, it would be $1 a use. But if you got 100 uses, you're down to 10 cents. Of course, if it's single use, you'd never make a package that lasted because it would be $10. You'd make a cheaper package. And that is exactly what has happened over the years. What happened is that in the 1950s, people came up with plastic. They weren't sure exactly what to do with it. It was invented before its purpose was known. And they figured out, how do you make money? How do you make money with plastic? And the message was, liberate mother from washing. Use once, discard, repeat. Use once, discard, repeat. The package then moved from an asset that the milkman built to last and that would be returned dirty, empty, and washed and used again, to a package that would be used once. And it became to the manufacturer a cost of goods sold. Mom wanted the ice cream. She did not want to own a piece of cardboard with plastic on the inside, but she had no choice, and it was affordable and easy. But the problems have obviously accumulated. What happened when the package ownership moved from the manufacturer who built it to last to Mom, who was using it once, is a very familiar story. Things got more and more cheap. And that's how you make more money with the cog. You make it cheaper. TerraCycle exists to address this problem. Loop exists to restore ownership of a better package that can be washed many times and be 100% recyclable in the end. And it works, as I'm about to show you. Here is the Haagen-Dazs container again. And you can see that the old one, if you had 100 uses, would cost $10. This one would only be $3 plus the cost of cleaning and logistics. The whole point of the Series B is to get Loop to scale so that we can get the cost down enough that it's on par with disposable. At this point, where it's small scale, as you'll see, we need to get to thousands of stores. We're now in hundreds, but we're at the right retailers and growing, as you will see next. In the last 2 years, while we had the Series A money and we're moving forward to getting Loop started, we now have 200 brands that have signed up for Loop to grow it with us over the years. If it's blue, it's where we either have introduced Loop, and you can see that Japan, France, UK, and US, because there are bubbles showing the retailers. And the other markets are ones where we intend to do it soon. The other marked ones are where TerraCycle operates, but are not immediate for Loop. Basically, this is the journey first on the X curve of the ice cream, from the brand to the retailer, from the retailer to the family, and somebody enjoys the ice cream and the ice cream's gone, but the package has a circular system that's quite viable, demonstrated. Consumers like it, brands like it, retailers like it. This is on the shelves of Carrefour in France, largest retailer in France. And you can see that they are approaching 100 stores this month, which is in April of 2023. And they're looking now, taking it nationally to get toward 250 stores by the end of the year and 500 by the end of 2025. That's a key number, and obviously more SKUs, meaning more products and sizes of products on the shelves. And that's Carrefour in France. And here we are in Japan at the largest retailer there, Aeon. And you can kind of see the growth of Aeon, as well as reverse vending, where people bring it back and get their deposits back. It's been a big success, and Aeon is taking Loop to nationally as well, as you can see on the map to the bottom right. This is Tesco in the UK, a brilliant, this time last year, pilot. But once the war started and the recession came to the UK, there was no choice but for them to wait until the recession ends before they roll it out nationally. But they did a very strong report that talks about their intention to bring it forward after the recession. And indeed, they're in touch with us monthly. Clem will speak to that when she gets on in a few minutes. We're at Walmart in the US, really just starting, but they're very excited. In this month of April 2023, we should hear some big announcements from Walmart, and Clem can speak to that as well. Giant is owned by the Giant stores in the US are owned by Ahold, the Dutch retailer, and they're now at 26 stores in the Washington, D.C. area. And this is just retail. We've done things at Burger King, McDonald's, Tim Hortons in Canada. We're in B2B in multiple countries, et cetera. I won't get into how Loop makes money now in the interest of time. I kind of mentioned that there are certain things, the buy everywhere and return anywhere element of it is a key portion to how we take Loop forward into the world. But some companies like Coke or Evian have said they want to do their own washing, and we said, fine, that's kind of on the outer layer. More details, of course, in a data room and in conversations that we might have. We had existing investors come into the Series A, in which we raised $25 million. We have accomplished a lot with the Series A, and this is just a summary chart. There's a whole lot of information in the data room, but what's most important here is to say that we have definitely demonstrated that Loop not only is on a process to scale where the economics make sense, but also that we are now have commitments from major retailers to get us to break even in profitability 2024-25. So this is a strong time for Loop to raise money and scale in those initial markets, as well as potentially to open up in additional markets. You'll see on the top that we're raising $25 million into Loop Global Holdings, into which P&G and Nestle and some other investors invested in the Series A. There's a minimum investment of $2 million. And I am pleased to now present to you an interview with our founder and CEO, Tom Zaki, who born in Hungary, grew up in Canada, and went to college at one of our best universities, and left to start TerraCycle 20 years ago this year. And I think you'll enjoy Tom and getting his insights on the potential and trajectory of Loop. Thank you. Hey, Tom. What inspired you to start Loop?
So at TerraCycle, now for 20 years, across 20 countries, we've been focusing on how to take a linear economy, basically take, make, waste type system, and try to move that into a circular one, focusing first on how do we collect and recycle items, and then how do we help companies make those items from recycled content. So you got a circular economy based on recycling, and we built a successful business with lots of great partnerships. But we asked ourselves a number of years ago, is that the end? Is that the true solution to waste? And we realized that we can go further by shifting from a circular economy based on recycling to a circular economy based on reuse. And this is much better for the environment from a carbon point of view. It gives major benefits to consumers, and it allows truly an elimination of the concept of waste, because the packaging just goes around and around for that intended purpose until one day it's worn out, and then it can just be recycled back into itself and go around again for that intended purpose. So we felt like this is an area that we should really deeply explore.
And so, where is Loop today, and why do you think it will succeed?
Let me take a step back as I answer that question,
please.
right? Like, in the end, what is needed for reuse, and how can reuse scale? There's today many different ways a consumer can access reuse, basically three major what we would call modalities. Refill stations, getting packaging and filling it yourself at home with a concentrate perhaps, and then pre-fill. Now, pre-fill is basically when the bottle's already full on the store shelf and you buy it with a deposit and return the empty. When we looked at these, we realized that if you take all the products a Walmart sells, only really 2% or so can be concentrated. Technically, you're not concentrating Tylenol, you're not concentrating alcohol, you're not concentrating a frozen falafel ball. And only 4 or 5% can even legally, or from a health and safety point of view, go through a dispensing station. You're not going to have a dispensing station filled with Tylenol tablets, or insect repellent, you name it. And so pre-fill was the interesting area to focus on, because everything in a disposable package can go, technically, into a pre-fill package, just a more durable vessel. And it's also, around the world, the biggest scaled reuse apparatuses today that exist. It's propane tanks in the US, it's beer kegs, it's the beverage system of Germany, the beer system of Canada. So then the question was, okay, if pre-fill's the way to win, what's needed to enable a big adoption of the FMCG, the fast-moving consumer good industry? And what we realized is a platform is needed. And that's what Loop is, to be able to help brands be able to enable reusable versions of their products, noting 200 major CPGs from Nestle to P&G have already joined, enabling about 500 products. And then we need retailers to make those products available to their consumer. And then Loop's role is to steward that, be the platform steward, and then also to do the missing operational functions, which is really the waste management function of reuse. Get the dirty, sort them out, clean them if necessary, and get them back to the brands. And so All of these stakeholders, these big brands, retailers, wanted a tremendous amount of learning and making sure it's valid for their consumers. So we launched online learning platforms. That was a great success. Then the retailers said, let's go physically in store. And today we have 3 major regions that are doing this, all with their number 1 retailers. Japan with Aeon, already up at 100 stores, and 4 new retailers launching in the coming months. Carrefour in France, already at 68 stores. And Monoprix, launching very, very soon, another major retailer there, but Carrefour being number 1. And in the US with Walmart, and then also support with Giant. And so we have 3 very different regions, America, Europe, and Asia, all with their number 1 retailers actively deploying Loop as we speak, and in the process of scaling it.
And how do you see Loop evolving over time? What's the vision?
The vision for Loop is to be the global platform for reuse. So that it makes it very easy for a manufacturer to create a reusable derivative of their product, and very easy for a retailer to sell it. Ideally as easy as selling a disposable, making and selling a disposable good. And in the end, I think the arc of something like Loop is very similar to other retail-driven initiatives, like 2 big ones being organic and e-com. Organic also began, very similar to Loop, certain brands doing organic practices so that they can get organic products, retailers making an organic section. And over time, it's now gotten, to be a good percent of people's wallets, and even some retailers only sell organic produce. And not just, eco retailers, but like Costco. And similar to e-com. E-com also was a retailer-led initiative, started small, and now it's become not the dominant way of shopping, but becoming really substantial and growing. And I think reuse has a very similar opportunity, noting the nice thing is you can have organic reusable products, you can have e-com delivered reuse, so it really transcends any form of product.
And do you think consumers, what's the experience been with deposits?
Yes, I'd say the really nice thing here, the biggest risk on Loop was that the consumer's not there yet. Because how do you solve that would be a massive investment in education, marketing, advertising. And the great news is everywhere we've deployed with value shoppers, not the one you'd expect, the rich eco person, but I'm talking the Walmart shopper in the middle of America, right? The value shopper in France. French shoppers are very value driven. Carrefour is a mass merchant. So we've tested it with the area where the masses shop. And the consumers love it. They are not worried about deposits. They have no deposit anxiety. 90+% of French shoppers don't even view the deposit as a cost. They don't mentally think of it that way. I mean, it's just like when you check into a hotel. Your credit card may be dinged a few $100, which you'll get back when you leave. Does anyone worry if that's 100, 150, 200? No, because it's just a deposit that you get back. And people tend to love reuse because it is more sustainable. That's a big part. But it's also more beautiful, durable packaging, and in some cases may have more function. So they get all their favorite stuff in a better experience. And again, they don't view that deposit as a cost.
And companies like Nestle will let you use used and washed packaging for things like baby food and otherwise?
Yes, in fact, what's exciting about Loop is the technical efficiency that we've created. I mean, we've been approved by not just Nestle, but Danone to do their baby food. That's the highest risk product, highest risk area to do anything, because that's, of course, the last person you want to harm is a baby from a liability point of view, and approved by not just one, but two big baby food companies. But we are also working with Bayer, that's OTC pharmaceutical, and all these different large organizations. That's one of the, I think, the real powers of Loop is that we're not putting out our own reusable products where we have to become experts in everything. We're working with the world's best companies who are domain experts in these areas to just help their products transition to be reusable.
So just in a nutshell, consumers and manufacturers, brands, and retailers benefit from a reuse Loop system? Loop?
Yes, I think, look, there's a lot of pressure today. If you think about each of those stakeholders, right? Let's go through what's driving them and what are the benefits. You have brands, retailers, and consumers really make up the triangle of important stakeholders here. And for the brands and the retailers, well, all three, convenience is king amongst all else. So if you take the convenience for a consumer, what's more convenient if you want to access a reusable product? Take your vessel back to a store that you had to clean and fill it yourself at the store, or buy some concentrate and dilute it at home, or just take a filled product off the shelf, and when you're done with all of those, you can drop them back off at the store. Clearly, we'd argue, the latter. For the retailers and the brands, Loop pre-fill reuse behaves the closest to disposable packaging out of any other modality. So convenience is so important, especially in a world where convenience and innovation are constrained by supply chain issues, economic issues, all the things we're living through right now, make it even more important to put convenience for all three of those stakeholders on a pedestal. Then it's really important to drive strong economics and product features and benefits. Features and benefits are an easy win because it's the exact same content with now a better package. Better because it's more sustainable, more beautiful, higher quality materials. You pick what floats your boat, but nevertheless better and in no way worse. And economics, by having Walmart, Carrefour, Aeon as the ones driving price with the vendors, there's no one better to get unit economics to be the absolute best than these players who are the world's best at driving cost out of systems. And to do that with the manufacturers, the Nestle's, the Procter & Gamble's, the Unilevers, the Coca-Colas, who know how to respond to that in the very best way. And in both cases, a Pepsi and a Walmart serve the value shopper.
Thank you. One last question. The environment.
Yeah.
How does Loop benefit the environment?
Loop has many very important benefits to the overall environment. I think first and foremost, it solves waste entering into incinerators and landfills, and even worse, being informally disposed. That's the obvious. But by shifting from a disposal to reuse or recycling to reuse, you have major carbon savings. In fact, Loop qualifies and is in the process of being accredited for carbon credits. And so you're also helping from a climate change point of view. And the nice thing, so those are the two objective, measurable benefits, but then you also have a tertiary, which is typically consumers enter their environmental journey before they think about shifting away from animal proteins to plant-based proteins, before they start thinking about living a smaller life or traveling differently, those bigger interventions. They do what we all learned as the first environmental lesson in our lives as 5-year-olds, is reduce, reuse, recycle. Now, of course, not buying, reduce is the best, and everyone should think about that. But what's better than recycling is reuse. And that is the most intuitive, simple to understand sustainability lesson. And so if that can be brought to life in front of consumers, it may inspire them to stop eating as much meat, to not get on as many airplanes, and other more important things that you can change in your life to benefit the planet. So you get those three things. You get waste elimination, you get carbon savings, and a huge amount, I think, of like a gateway, if you will, a positive gateway into other environmental outcomes.
With the positive carbon reduction as well.
Well, that's right, yeah.
It's really great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody, again. It's really great to have shared Tom and his passion insights. I'm inspired to work with and for him every day. So we're now at a point that I'm really excited about. And it's what Wholesale Investors asked for first and foremost, was a fireside chat. And so we're pleased to deliver a fireside chat with the general manager of Loop, Clem Schmid. Clem, I'm going to ask you a few questions, the first of which, please introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Hi, everyone. I'm delighted to be here and be able to share the incredible journey from Loop. But first, so about myself, I started working for Loop over 4.5 years ago when it was just a crazy idea on a piece of paper. And before this, I actually work on the brand side in the industry, 15 years in total. Started in B2B with 3M, moving to Gillette on durable appliances, and I spent 10 years in Procter & Gamble, working on FMCG, always in business management and marketing. And my specialization was habit change on the consumer side, as well as business modeling, which happened to be very handy as we're talking about how to scale reuse and make it profitable. I'm French, you probably hear it. I have an international experience in Germany, in the UK, in the US, which is where I met Tom and Richard originally. I'm also a mom of 3 wonderful children for whom I'm also fighting that battle and hoping that they won't end up into a world full of waste. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Wow. Thank you, Clem. So could you tell our friends at Wholesale Investors what progress we've made since we started, and importantly, what has been accomplished with the proceeds from the Series A?
Yes, absolutely. Progress on so many levels. As I was saying, 4 years ago, it was an idea on a piece of paper. And I want to state the first success was to engage so many brands and retailers globally to join us in this adventure and believe that reuse is a viable business answer to the waste crisis that we are seeing. So we started with a handful of partners at the beginning, and we're now working with more than 200 brands and over 15 retailers across FMCG, but also QSR and B2B. The second part is the consumer adoption, which we have seen across many channels, from the store to e-com. We have consumers purchasing and coming back and returning the products and sharing how much it drives brand preference, sharing how much it drives store preference. We have the store manager sharing how much they enjoy having these differentiated tools for them to also attract new consumers. We moved from an e-com platform, which was a tiny market research tool that we use at the beginning, capped at a certain number of users, to being in over 100 stores in Japan with Aeon, as Richard shared previously, over 70 stores in Carrefour across 3 regions, already starting piloting what a scale-up supply chain would look like for them internally. And of course, last but not least, starting this month around Earth Day, which is a very timely moment, the kickoff of the Walmart project in Arkansas on e-com. The point which I, from Loop side, can be the most proud of also is we've made it work. We created an infrastructure that didn't exist of any level 4 years ago. How do you get product back from consumers' home back into a filling line, and what are all the steps and the functions that are required, from the very operational ones of course, collecting the empty products and making sure they are cleaned to the levels of requirements that the brand partners has, from motor oil to baby food, but also all the infrastructure on the back end for managing the deposits, making sure the right consumers is getting the right amount of money back and the right brand is getting the right package. All of this is functioning across all of the countries, but is also a platform that is global, enabling potentially tomorrow in the future a product to be purchased in France and returned in Japan, because the infrastructure is there, is global, which is what our partners at the very early days had told us are required in order to match the global supply chains that we're having today. Last but not least, you will see, I'm sure, also in your countries, wherever you are, a huge legislative movement on reuse, whether it's at a global level with the UN treaty negotiation to end plastic waste that have just kicked off, or at a regional level, the European Commission, for the first time ever, put a reuse target across different categories around the PPWR document that has been released late November. And of course, at country level, I won't quote all of them, but I'm sure each of you will have an example on how this is working. We've cracked the operational side of it with Loop. We've cracked also what are the big bottleneck, if I can say, at a front-end level on how to distribute the product. Adding a deposit into a content price sounds very easy. The IT system and the financial and accounting systems is not always following. And together with Carrefour, we have cracked the separation of the content and deposit price across 3 different accounting systems within their IT, which enabled us also to treat the deposit the right way from a fiscal standpoint, which means no VAT GST, if you're located in Australia, sometimes it's also called, is attached to the deposit. So we are able to treat the content price from the deposit differently, which enables all of the system to function.
Thank you, Clem. You covered so much. And I want to say that I'm really, having been at your side through all of this, you make me very proud, because the truth is, just taking it from a brand's perspective, and you come from CPG, right? I mean, the whole notion, they're used to making hundreds of thousands of units at a time and putting them into new packages. They're all set up for it. And we're creating change that ultimately is in their best interest, the world's best interest, everyone's best interest. But it's a pain in the butt to have to buy packages and make sure they're washed and tested. I mean, is it true that, Nestle and Danone have accepted our cleaning standards for baby food, and that we're actually washing to those standards? And I'd also like you to address, we're not doing the washing ourselves, right? We use companies, and I'd like you to speak to that as well.
Yes, so absolutely. As I mentioned, from motor oil to baby food, we have qualified and audited from our partners all of the processes and the facilities that are linked to this. To your point, Richard, we also don't pretend to have the capacity to do it all by yourself. We're not a one-man show, but we are an ecosystem. And we're an ecosystem at the beginning, working with brands and retailers to develop the product. We believe the consumers will purchase the product they love and the product they're choosing today in reusable. And we don't believe in change. It's the same thing on the back-end side, on the logistics and technical side. We are leveraging the knowledge of people that have the expertise either in markets where they are established today. That's the case in Japan, where we've partnered with washing experts and companies that have been washing for over 5 generations. We've also went in markets where it's not existing, with partners like Ecolab, which helped us crack a lot of the standards and procedures that were required in order to meet those very high standards. So we are really leveraging the expertise where it is and orchestrating all of those very complex pieces into a functioning system.
It's really exciting, because mostly because brands never saw their packaging back. There was never not only a washing process and dealing with also environmental carbon issues, saving water where you can, making sure that the washing does not create allergies. But a lot of the packaging today, people are allergic to what's in virgin plastic and the outgassing. And so it's really quite a nice thing that we've mastered all of those pieces by working with companies like DHL and reverse logistics. We have had to figure out, you're getting all these things back, but you not only have to get a L'Oreal package back to L'Oreal, but the right size of a L'Oreal package to be washed with the right size, so that as soon as they're all washed of a certain size, they can go back to the manufacturer or their co-packer for refill, and then back to the retailer. So all of this had to be sort of reverse engineered and then forward engineered to have an alternative system. And the key, as I understand it, is getting to scale, which is what the Series B is about. I'd like you to speak about it, because I believe there was a study done by a very reputable company that says that Loop, when it gets to scale, will without doubt have favorable economics. Can you speak to that?
Yes, absolutely. So you're referring to the work that we did with McKinsey, which is also available in the data room for anyone in this call to look at it. And exactly how you said it, reuse is as profitable as single use when it reaches the right scale. And we've done all this work, not only with McKinsey, but also with many of our other partners in terms of setting up business model. Scale is the number one vectors that will drive economics and that will drive profitability. The second is the pack. And you mentioned it in the introduction, making the pack an asset is not just on your accounting balance sheet, is how do you make it an asset also for you as a brand and as a business? It's making it as something that delights consumers. I'm happy to expand on it if needed, but that's one of the way to improve the consumer experience and create value in the market, but also make it an asset as making it a profit center for you as a company. By having a pack that rotates many times, you're driving the economics down from using that pack over and over, as opposed to, as you were showing in the chart before, single-use packaging for which you are paying for at every single unit.
Indeed, indeed. And I actually am excited to share first an insight that you gave me. So many consumers, they buy their hand washing soap, but they hate the package. They don't want to put it up, so they buy something else to put it in. Whereas now they can buy it in a container and they don't have to decant it. And of course, they can return that dirty empty and it gets washed and used again. Clem, a lot of people have said that people don't like the idea of having things packaged in a package that's been used before. They want a virgin package. But I think it was you and maybe it was Tom, we had this discussion where we talked about, well, if you've ever eaten in a restaurant, you probably drank out of a glass that someone else drank in, and that it's just a mind frame thing. Do you want to speak to that, and as a sort of movement into the question of what have we learned in consumer insights and our capacities to really do consumer insights within Loop, and then of course what the brands have done?
Yes, absolutely. So I would answer your question on two levels. The first one is consumer delight and value perception, as you exactly alluded to in your restaurant examples. We prefer to eat in 3-star Michelin restaurants, which have silverware, very nice porcelain plates, and obviously crystal glasses, as opposed to a QSR, which has a paper cup to drink from it. There is a huge value perception in durability, and consumer recognize this. It adds something into their lives, whether it's a perception, aesthetics benefit. You talk about decanting your hand wash or your shampoo. That's 40% of the US consumers which are decanting their hand wash today in the US. But it also could drive functionality improvement, whether it's by answering unmet consumer needs, whether it's by moving into smart technologies on packaging. You can imagine with the work we're doing very upstream in Japan, a lot of the Japanese companies have very creative and advanced idea on how to make a packaging smart, from improvement on from measuring real-time shelf life depending on the humidity condition or the temperature you have in your home, which is great also to fight food waste because it adjusts the lifetime of the product, or any other innovative, disruptive innovation that you can think about. Investing into a package that's going to be reused several times is opening doors to breakthrough innovation and delivering benefits to consumers, which was not thinkable before.
And then we have time for just 2 more questions. And one that I wanted to ask is, what else have we learned from consumer insights, and what have the brands learned? What have we learned? And then, just so you know, I'm going to just move you into why are brands excited about this, retailers, it's maybe obvious to people about the consumer experience. I think most people hate to waste. But talk about our consumer insights, because we invested a lot of time, money, as did the brands. What are some of the learnings you'd like to share?
Yes. So the first insight is consumers are ready for reuse. We see it live. We see it in many examples which are not Loop. Take Germany beverage system. They have no less beverage consumptions than anywhere in the globe, My German husband will actually advocate for the contrary, most likely, especially when it comes to beer, and they're very proud of it. But it also has a return rate at 97 to 98%, depending on the literature that you have. So you have a functioning system at scale. The Loop results reconfirm that consumers are ready across category. We see return rates which are reaching already 80% for a platform that is that young from Loop, that's already getting very close to the German results. As we know, the more time in market and the more the expansion of the geography, the higher the return rate. We also get we also get a lot of positive feedback from consumers, as I mentioned, in terms of driving brand preference and store preference. Some partners did independent research, not led by Loop, showing that it doesn't only delight their loyal consumers, which are very important group to keep, but it also brings back rejectors who have left the brand for sustainability concerns or environmental reason. Take something like organic store, for example, or a bulk package-free store. Consumers are going back to Carrefour today because they see that they can have more choice, that they can have the product they want and love, and they don't have to deal with the waste.
Thank you, Clem. I've learned so much just reading the consumer insights, but people of all ages, all demographics, it's not in the US, red states or blue states, it's strong in both. And it's not just predominantly women. Women do more shopping, but it's also men are loving the experience. And so I think that's really helpful. So last question for you in this fireside chat is, if you're a brand or retailer, why would you want this? Why would you do this? When you think about it, it's a lot of effort. Extra shelf space, reverse vending machines, the responsibilities for the retailer. There's a lot of work on the brands. They got to go out of pocket, buy this packaging, have their packing fit into different things. It's starting at small scale. They like big scale. They like national. We're not there yet. What's their incentive?
So, Richard, brands will go because their consumers want it, because reuse is something that they are demanding more and more with the action, and they want to see this come through. You also do it because legislatively it is coming. Reuse targets are coming, and markets are really eager to drive competitive advantage for it. You do it because it opens breakthrough innovation and will drive brand differentiation. You'll be able to use the packaging as an asset, not only just the content, but also drive your business model out of two legs versus just your content. So I hope it gives enough insight and enough.
I think it does, Clem. You can think of all the money and smart brains in marketing, and right now they're putting all of that into a package that's going to get tossed, probably end up on the ground with their name and logo on it, when they can put a lot of innovation in, but they can't do it and make that investment in a package if it's only going to be used once. Having circularity here and the deposit system, consumer insights say people like it. Do French people mind deposits, by the way? We know they care about price.
Yes, but deposit is a system that's extremely well understood by consumers globally, from Asia to Europe and to the US. We see no sensitivities on deposits, because you're getting your money back fully refunded when you bring back the package, and this is again consistent across all of our market learnings.
Thank you. And I believe in time retailers will be able to say, thank you, Clem, if you just dropped off, say, 40 euro worth of packaging or 30 euro worth of packaging, to say, if you don't put the money in your bank account, but spend it in our store where you dropped it off in the next 48 hours, we'll give you, instead of 30 euro back, we'll give you 36 euro back, 20% just to keep it there. So they actually can make money in savings while the retailer is now capturing consumers to stay within the Loop system within their stores. So Clem, this has been a great chat. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening in Geneva.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thanks, Clem. Wow. Well, I'm really glad also that you got to meet Clem and feel not only her passion and experience, but deep knowledge. It's amazing to watch how people are buying things in major retail stores and getting their deposits back and are coming back again and again. And I think over the years ahead, we're going to see loop and reuse replace single use. It'll at first be an exception to the rule. It'll then potentially disposability will become exception to the rule. But loop is in first, second, and third place in terms of bringing reuse to the world. There are other forms of reuse systems, like where you bring your empty bottles in and get a non-branded product and fill it up with your soaps or your shampoos or your grains, etc. But in terms of getting branded products into retailers, we're pretty much the only game in town, and we're taking it global, which leads me to Loop is raising a Series B of $25 million. The Series A was $25 million. We're mostly talking to strategic investors and funds that are focused on impact and singularity. We weren't looking for wholesale investors, though in the Series A, as you may have seen during the presentation, some family offices also did participate then. But what I can say is we were approached by wholesale investors saying that they had investors who are looking for high impact companies that can, on a global level, bring change to the world while also having a strong financial basis for good returns and a reasonably timed exit. And after meeting with them and learning about the organization, we've opened the door. The minimum investment is $2 million. We're looking for a limited number of investments in the $2 to $5 million range. And if you are interested in knowing more about Loop and this capital raise, number one, you can visit our deal room in the Wholesale Investor system and on their site. With that, if you have greater interest and would like to get into the Loop data room, we'll require that you sign a non-disclosure agreement, but we have those ready. And I guess the main thing to say is, again, my career has been an impact. I am so delighted to be part of the TerraCycle team and particularly inspired by what Loop is doing and will do. All it's going to take is scale. The Series B is all about scale for the right investor. This is a potentially dream investment because it is happening and it's part of a change that needs to happen, a global imperative. Governments are pushing it, consumers are demanding it, and the economics work at scale, and we're scaling. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Richard Pearl from TerraCycle, on behalf of our founder, CEO, Tom Zaki, and Loop's General Manager, Clem Schmidt, we all say thank you for your time and interest. And thanks to wholesale investors for the opportunity to present to the wholesale investor community. Thank you.